Oh, boy. There's Brian. Brian, you're working.
I'm working.
Jonathan is working. Okay, great. We got a special guest here tonight, all the way from Cincinnati, Linda Caudill. Hey, Linda.
Hey.
Welcome.
Boy. Let me just put this on you. That way we can see your name and everything. President of Ohio Freedom Coalition. It is good to see you. And my applause meter doesn't work, so I apologize for that. I can't figure out. Everything was working. Everything was working just A-okay until I hit the button to just start. But hey, we're doing it live, so whatever happens, happens. Man, it's hot. Man, it's hot. All right. You guys have Three Amigos here. What'd you do to cool off today? Anything special? No. You can either drink and go swimming. You can, who knows? Any of that kind of stuff works. All right, boy. Let me just see. Oh, let me cut to this for a second. Watch this. Watch this. Your guys are. You know what that is? That's one of those bunker bombs that went into the ground 300 feet deep. Watch it explode here. Look at that. Look at that. That is amazing. That is, it's 300 feet in the ground. Look at. Here's another thing too to keep in mind. See that cone right there? This is the military exercise. They were just practicing with those things, but they put a cone out there and they could just zero it right into that cone. That is amazing.
Yeah, they can hit the cone. But the thing is, I mean, that is pretty darn amazing tech, and what our military was able to put together and do strategically is breathtaking. But the thing to remember is that the bunkers that we're aware of are way deep in the ground. And I don't even know that our bunker busters can get to them. And I think they were probably built with that in mind. What are they, like 4,000 feet down or something?
I don't know. I'm not sure how deep they were, but
I heard they were 300 feet deep.
I've heard everything from 300 to 3,000, But here's the thing. That type of an explosion you're seeing that explosion, then it's 300 feet above the ground. I mean, this thing is 300 feet in the ground, and it's that big of an explosion happening above ground. It's got quite the effect. Yeah, they're saying that they just totally decimated everything. I don't have my main cup with me, unfortunately.
Well, it also said it generated a 5.1 earthquake. So I think it did a lot of different things.
It did that big of an earthquake. Wow. And they knocked out, in the news changes all the time, but they knocked out like 3 facilities. They knocked out 3 facilities and just decimated them underground and everything. And Iran is like, really, they don't know what the heck is going on. This is kind of funny right here. Listen to this.
Step if Iran or militias under Iranian influence on the region attack U.S. interests.
What the guy is going to tell you is he wants to know what are we going to do if Iran attacks us? Or are they going to attack one of those U.S. military bases or something like that? What are we going to do? Like, who the heck cares? It's Iran. These guys have no military base
or allies in the region.
The battle damage assessment is ongoing, but our initial assessment, as the chairman said, is that all of our precision munitions struck where we wanted them to strike and had the desired effect. Wherever it may be, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or bases in the Gulf, as the president said, as the chairman said, it would be a very bad idea for Iran or its proxies to attempt.
A very, very bad idea if Iran were to attempt to attack us in any way. But okay, when you're talking Middle East, all right, when you're talking the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, all these countries out there, I mean, they're the most weird. They are the weirdest people, the most backward people. They are, and they have virtually, their military is so outdated. Now, here's the thing. Trump's been taking a lot of bashing and stuff for doing this, from the Democrats, of course, and a few Republicans. But they were like
Republicans.
They were like a month away. Iran was like within a month or so, I think, of creating a nuclear bomb. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to let these wackos, the supreme leader, have nuclear bombs that he could just decide to drop anywhere he wants to. I know the first missiles are going to go right to Israel, But you had to stop it. There was just no way around it. You just had to stop. You had to stop it.
Just a couple things to interject for perspective, because you're right. The rhinos and the ridiculous far left ultra liberal Democrats are climbing all over this thing. So a few things. One, there's a great video montage of Barack Obama sounding awfully like what Trump just said and did. Barack Obama called out Iran as an imminent threat and a destabilizing element of the Middle East and a threat to Israel, which is a threat to the United States. It spelled it all out. You can, if you're on the left, you can watch Obama say pretty much exactly what Trump just said and did. The other thing, and these people are just wacko, they might agree with something, and the moment Trump says it, they go TDS and get dead set against it. But did you know that Obama dropped 26,000 bombs in 7 countries in his last year in office with no congressional authorization? Because that's the big thing, as people have figured out by now. The left, which is a combination of politicians, their talking head, social influencers, and all that stuff, and the media, this quote unquote news, they come out with some sort of storyline, and they all say it all day, every day, until the next storyline comes out. So they sound like this broken record. The last thing, and Joe, I just texted a link to you. There is a great video of some man from Iran, and he's from Tehran. He escaped, and I get the sense he lives somewhere in the U.S., but he spells out in this great video all the times the Iranian people have tried to create an uprising, and they mass just slaughter, wholesale slaughter, torture, abducting people, putting them in prisons. They went into a college campus because campus kids were protesting at one point. He spells it all out in this video, and he says in no uncertain terms, I am hopeful that the U.S. and Israeli military successfully wipe out this horrible regime that has oppressed the Iranian citizens. And I've been sharing that all day. Hoorah, I'm with it. I hope that they do successfully wipe out the regime and give freedom back to the Iranian people.
All righty. Let me do this here. Linda, I'm going to get with you here in a second. We're going to be talking with Linda Caudill here in just a second. We're going to be going, Linda, you want to talk about closed primaries with the Republican Party, and I think it's a good thing. We're also talking about some of the Supreme Court judges. We got in 2026, we got so much going on, and we have to knock off Jennifer Brunner of the Ohio Supreme Court. You know, get rid of her. She's the last Democrat. We actually have 6 Republicans and 1 Democrat. So it'd be nice to go 7-0. So we are really becoming a red state. So that's pretty good. But let me just go to here for a second. I got to cut to a couple of things that I've got here on X that I wanted to talk about. This guy here, Thomas Massie, he is a Republican out of Kentucky. Listen to the goal of this guy. He says, why didn't you call us back from vacation to vote whether or not to take any military action if this was such a serious threat to our country? What the heck? This guy's a loony bird. All right, so Trump has already retaliated against him and said that he's going to primary this guy. He's Thomas Massie. He is a Republican. He's out of Kentucky. But what do you get?
I know him. I know him personally. I grew up in Kentucky. His district is 3 miles from me. I've been to a lot of his events. I've been to his fundraisers. I've gone to breakfast with him. The guy has never been a Trumper. You could go back 10 years. He's never been a Trump guy. He's never been America first. And if you look at his voting record, he votes with the Democrats time and time and time again. I have no problem if he gets primaried.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, but the goal of this guy, he's saying something about something along the lines of, they disrupting his vacation. Disrupting a vacation, and they've been doing nothing but vacations. That's our Congress. They still have to pass that one big beautiful bill, which they haven't been able to do yet.
They're doing nothing.
And they do nothing. They do absolutely nothing.
Joe, I do want to settle something, and that is Thomas Massey and Brian Massey are not related. Okay, I just want to clear that.
Good to mention that.
Yeah, I was
don't
wondering.
call him Uncle Tom. So
I was wondering about that. I'm glad you set it straight on that. Yeah. Thought it was a long lost cousin or something, or who knows. Let me figure out here a couple other things real quick. Man. But what? I can't. Oh, here it is. Yeah, let's see what else is up here. Okay, so that's Thomas Massey. You know him. That's amazing, Linda. That is amazing. So, but yeah, because you're so close to Kentucky, I never really thought about it. But you're in Cincinnati. I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. You're right in Kentucky there, right? You just cross that river and you're there.
Just cross the river and you're right there.
Yeah,
I was actually born and raised in northern Kentucky. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I personally know the guy. But you know, he's never been what I would call real radical hating on Trump, but he's never liked Trump. Never.
No, he doesn't like Trump. Well, Trump is going to primary. I mean, he's got all that money, especially if Elon wants to throw something in. The guy is toast, okay? No one seems to be getting arrested over the corruption that Elon uncovered. Why not? That's a good question. No, we've got to make sure that happens. Also, who is this? Who is this person?
Marcy Kaptur.
Yeah, Kaptur. Okay, Kaptur will not survive 2026. I guarantee you. Mm-mm. All right? She will not survive. She won. She is so old that she should not be running. She's out in the Toledo area. I don't know. She's been in there about as long as Sherrod Brown before Sherrod Brown stopped being in it because he finally got defeated. But anyhow, she lost. She only won by 1 percentage point in that Toledo congressional seat against Derek Marin. And so I think it's Josh Williams is going to challenge her this go round, and with more money. And I think Josh is a better candidate than Derek because I don't know if Derek put forth the effort he should have. She is toast. She's gone. Well,
there's that lady that's running too, and Cam Sagasser, who used to work at the ORP. He is her political consultant. She's got a military background. So I don't know much about her, but so there's 3 of them, 3 Republicans running.
Oh, against that one seat? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, okay. I think Josh is definitely going to be the front runner on that, probably be the front runner. And then one other thing here, Trump is letting everybody know that there was fraud in the 2020 election, overwhelming fraud. But the neat thing about it this time, it's not just talk. He is got the goods. He's got the evidence. And he's going to make good on that. So that's good. There's just so much going on. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but you can go, it's just so much going on. Every time you turn around, there's something new happening that you didn't even realize. Let's get into some of the Ohio politics here. Linda, let's start talking. So, open primaries and closed primaries. What's the difference between those?
Okay. You can have a totally open primary, which means anybody can walk up to vote on election day and pull whatever ballot that they want. And then you have a total closed primary where only Republicans can vote in a Republican primary, only Democrats and a Democrat. And then there's some other states that have kind of sort of an open, sort of a closed, where they might allow like independents to vote either way. And I want to give you some background a little bit. Back in 2016, I was the Hamilton County chair for Trump. And Kasich, who was running against Trump at that time, was actually going on the radio and the newspaper telling Democrats, if you want to stop Trump, vote for me. So that was my first experience with some of these shenanigans. And then if you fast forward to 2022, DeWine had approximately 250 Democrats that crossed over to elect him instead of Blystone and Renacci. But when you look at the numbers, Renacci had the most amount of Republican votes. So, if it weren't for the open primary, DeWine wouldn't be our governor now. And if you look at 2024, some of you have probably heard of Adam Kinzinger, the former congressman out of the Chicago area. He was actually doing interviews, radio, TV, telling Democrats in Georgia and North Carolina specifically to vote for Nikki Haley, telling the Democrats to vote for Nikki Haley to stop Trump. So he's another never Trumper that was kind of doing some shenanigans and things. And then down locally close to me, Phil Heimlich, his father is the guy that invented the Heimlich maneuver. Phil Heimlich is really a closet Democrat, but he was doing interviews and going on the radio and telling people, he wanted Democrats to cross over to vote for him. Luckily, they didn't do it. We didn't really see a whole lot of Democrat crossovers last year, probably because Sherrod Brown needed every vote. I don't know. But that gives you some background.
Well, now with the last governor's race, DeWine went up against who did he go up against?
Renacci and Blystone. Jim Renacci and Joe Blystone.
So you're all for the last primary. That's right. So now you're saying, if I'm reading you right, so you're saying that a lot of Democrats swung over to vote for DeWine in the primary because they wanted DeWine over Renacci. And,
yes,
and you have
because
I mean that is like something that can be proved looking at the election information and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, you can. You can actually go back and look at how many Republicans there were before the primary, and then you can look at how many Republicans voted in the general, and then you can also look at the next year's primary. Before the primary happens, look at how many Republicans there are at that point. And there was about 250,000 difference if you look at that data. So technically they cross over and then they go right back again. There's a very small number, and I don't recall exactly how many it was, maybe 10,000, 15,000, who did cross over and stayed Republican, but it's not that significant. So
okay, so are there states out there that have closed primaries that you're aware of?
There are. There's 25 states that have closed primaries, and Texas, as we speak, is in the process of closing their primary. So
and how does that work then? If you legitimately wanted to change parties and you can't do it in a primary, how would you do it?
The legislature is going to have to decide how to implement this. Right now, I've got the State Central Committee working on trying to pass a resolution stating that we are a private organization, and as such, we decide who is part of our organization, and we only want Republicans to be able to vote in our primary. So that's one step that we're taking to try and get this done. But the State Central Committee are not legislators, so they can't really decide how this is going to be implemented. They can just make their desire known. The legislature, there is a bill. It's HB 320. Beth Lear and Gary Click are the sponsors. There's 25 co-sponsors. And this week I learned that they're trying to get it put in the budget bill. So I've not heard yet if that was successful or not. I'll probably know more tomorrow on that. But yes, there are 25 states. How the other states do this is you have to register for the party that you want to be by a certain date. Each state is a little bit different. Kentucky, you have to do it by 12/31. Other states, it's 30 days. The bill that Beth Lear is putting forth is looking at the filing date, which is 90 days before the primary. So, but it's been assigned to a committee, and I'm very pleased with the committee that it's in, because 90% of the Republicans in that committee are co-sponsors. So I feel pretty good about the committee, but I would be even more tickled to death if it was in the budget bill.
Okay, here it is, 320. I got up on the screen. So Beth Lear and looks like Gary Click.
Gary Click,
and then
right.
You got these co-sponsors here. The only problem is it's still in committee, and you guys don't have much. I mean, they don't have much time. They've got to get all this stuff passed by the end of the month.
Yeah. What I heard was it probably is not going to have committee hearings until September. That's why this budget bill is pretty important if we can get that done, because that'll bypass a lot of this. So we'll just see what happens on that. But, there are, a couple things I can share with you. There is a U.S. Supreme Court ruling from 1986. And that Supreme Court ruling had to do with some lawsuit that happened in Connecticut. And the Supreme Court ruled that the Republican Party is a private organization and can decide who their members are. I mean, just like the Kiwanis or the Boy Scouts, any of these private organizations can decide who their members are. So we think that this Supreme Court ruling is a really good precedent to stop any potential lawsuits that might happen on down the road. But if you think about it, the Republicans aren't going to sue if we close our primary, because they're already Republicans. The nons probably aren't going to sue because they're nons, because they don't vote in primaries. The only ones who would sue would be the Democrats, and they would be suing to try and get into a private organization that they have no right to be in. So I think the Supreme Court ruling is pretty important.
Well, let me ask you this, though, Linda. Now, question here is, so it's in committee and it's not going to get out. You say maybe they'll do something. Yeah, maybe they'll do something with it in September. So, so that's a maybe. I don't know. You guys got any thoughts on that? Closed primaries, open primaries? Ooh,
oh, yeah.
It's getting hot in here.
Is it warm where you are?
It is hot. It's hot in this basement.
Crank up the AC. Basement. Basement's supposed to be cooler, Joe.
This basement. This basement has never been cool.
Right.
But anyhow, go ahead.
So,
I feel like I'm in a bunker. I'm in one of those bunkers in Iran. I'm waiting for a big missile to come. But then go ahead.
I'll hope for your sake that you don't get any bunker buster missiles headed your way. So party raiding has been going on for a while, and both sides are accused of it, but overwhelmingly, at least in the last 15 years, it's been pretty much one direction, because in theory, the Republican Party rules the roost in Ohio. And I wish that were true. In my book, I happen to have a pretty clear definition of how I define Republican, and it is something more than simply having an R next to your name. And we know, going back to actually Obama and some of the people around him, like Eric Holder, actually set about a strategy of systematic party raiding, of getting people into the Republican Party as sort of operatives, and then trying to get more people from the left into the Republican Party. And that's what it's worked to a pretty large extent. It's what we refer to now as the uniparty. There are a lot of people within the Republican Party who don't belong there. As a side note, for anybody that doesn't know this, I run Ohio Rhino Hunters. Find us on social media if you are interested in this subject and the number of people who are actually Democrats within the Republican Party who just cause mayhem and destroy our great nation by giving us this horrible single-party system. Then join us. Get involved. Find me at Ohio Rhino Hunters on most social media. So there's actually a pause.
Another big thing, and you're in Cuyahoga, right, Jonathan?
No, I escaped Cuyahoga. Now I'm in Geauga.
Okay. When this nefarious stuff goes on with the Democrats crossing over, it doesn't happen in Union County or Darke County or, Adams County. It's going to happen in Cuyahoga, Franklin, and Hamilton. And those three counties can literally determine a race if we have open primaries. So,
but Linda, I respectfully disagree. I think that a lot of the shenanigans and the mass mail-in votes and the mystery fictitious stuff happens in the 3 Cs and around them in those counties, Cuyahoga, Franklin, and Delaware. Hamilton. Thank you. I said that. I knew, but I said the wrong county name. So 2 things. I'm actually going to pause for a moment and interject. While you showed a picture of Beth Lear there, reminded, Joe knows this, last Wednesday I had occasion to speak with Beth Lear, and we're working on getting her. So stay tuned, audience. We're working on getting Beth Lear on the show, who has recently announced a new run. She's running for office. So stay tuned for more information on that. As a Beth Lear fan, I'm hoping to get her on the show. But back to the matter at hand, the party rating isn't dedicated. It doesn't just happen in those counties. There are plenty of Democrats that are spread all over the state, and including my very red, very conservative Geauga County. And we have people within the Republican Party, and I'll give you examples because I've called them out, and I actually did a big write-up, and it's published. We had a county chair of the Republican Party
I know.
who was calling for Democrats to pull Republican ballots and make sure that good, solid Republicans weren't elected, that tepid, lukewarm, quasi 5 minute ago Democrats were elected. And it happened. It's happened in many, many places. So my point in bringing that up is it's not just in the big races, and it's not big on just on the big issues. You get people down ballot all across the state who are working really hard. Just picture those screaming Karens out there, the far left, ultra liberal, angry, bitter, vile, nasty people. They cross over, and they're encouraged to by people, which is infuriating. That's how we get the number of rhinos we have. It's how we end up with people like Mike DeWine, who is not a Republican in my book,
right.
And people like him all across the board. We have plenty of people that don't belong in the Republican Party. So one last thing, and Linda, I'd love your feedback on this. I'm not sure if you're aware, I am very, very involved in precinct strategy, which is the effort to get people involved locally in politics, where you live, in your community, and both in Ohio and nationally. There's a big effort underway to try and get more people, more good MAGA, America First, constitutional conservatives involved in the Republican Party, because once we have the numbers, that's how we can fight back. That's precinct strategy. We actually even have a dedicated site here in Ohio. There are 2. In Ohio, it's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. Check out the website, get great information. Nationally, Dan Schultz launched precinctstrategy.com, but the importance of it can't be overstated.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you, and I've spent the better part of the last 6 months. I just recruited 60 new precinct people for Hamilton County. So,
very good.
It's a great strategy, and you're absolutely right. It's the way
that is the bread and butter of everything. Let me bring Shelby in. Shelby, you came out of nowhere, man. How you doing? I haven't seen you for a while. And let me make sure I got some audio for you. Your audio is not working, and I don't know if it's my end or yours.
Check.
There you go.
Is that?
Yeah. All right. So what's happening? Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, I just thought I was just jumping in. I caught partway through, but I really just wanted to jump in and just talk about the prenatal Equal Protection Act that got filed on Wednesday of this week by a couple of very brave Republican representatives, Levi Dean of District 71 and Jonathan Newman of District 80. And that's House Bill 370.
House Bill 370. What is it about? Wait a minute. Start over again. House Bill 370. What's going on with it?
That's the filing of the Ohio Prenatal Equal Protection Act. And so what that would do is give equal protection rights to the preborn. And so obviously that would be a challenge to the abortion amendment in our Constitution. But it's just at the beginning stages where it just got filed on Wednesday.
Just got filed on Wednesday. Let me pull it up here real quick. House Bill 340. Wait a minute. Let me just find it.
Joe, while you pull that up, let me interject a question. Because this is part of the reason we were very concerned about that abortion bill or abortion amendment being added to our state constitution. The concern, Josh Williams is doing some awesome stuff. The concern from the very beginning is that the state constitution trumps our bills and the Ohio Revised Code. So once it's in the Constitution, all bills under it in our Ohio Revised Code, our legislative action, are subject to our state constitution. So if we're trying to act, that's House Bill 340. I thought he said 370.
Yeah, it's 370.
Oh, it is 370?
Yes.
Why did you tell me 340?
I didn't say 370.
You said 340. I know you did.
So, well, you look up 370. So my concern, and this is for the constitutional scholars out there, it seems to me, from what I understand, no bill can supersede the state constitution. So in other words, if a state bill is in violation of a component of our state constitution, the Constitution overrides. So that's going to create. I don't know what will happen with that.
All right, listen. Wait a minute. Is this the bill?
Yes.
This is it. House Bill 370.
Yes.
And it's Levi Dean.
Yes.
And Jonathan Newman.
Yes.
And you have very few co-sponsors, but you do have Jennifer Gross, Tim Barnhorst. So you got some pretty good ones there. What is House Bill 370? What's it all about?
And again, it's to give equal protection to the preborn. So it would extend the same equal protection rights to them. And to your point, Jonathan, it will if this proceeds forward, it will force some kind of a constitutional issue to be brought. It'll probably end up before the courts, but at least we've got some forward movement on it, and at least we've got some people trying to do something about reversing getting abortion out of the Constitution.
So, okay, well, this will be interesting as it goes forward. I'm just wondering, like Jonathan was saying, you got the Constitution, you have a constitutional amendment that was changed, but now they're going to chisel away against that, which is good. I mean, I'm all for that. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. All right. Let's cut over to. Let's talk about the judge, and you can chime in on this too if you like, Shelby. Let's talk about. We have the Ohio Supreme Court judgeship. Let's see. We've got in 2026. What we have is we have 6 Republicans, and there's one lone Democrat on the Ohio Supreme Court as a judge, and that is Jennifer Brunner. Now, the strategy is get rid of her. Okay, so that the Republicans can have all 7 seats. All right. So let me get your take on a little bit of this. The only controversy involved in here is we've got about 5-6 judges. There's some really, really good, talented judges. A little bit of controversy, let me get your thoughts on this, Linda, is Pat Fisher, who is almost 70 years old, so he's going to be term limited. When you hit 70, you're term limited, okay? You're done. You can't be a judge anymore. So he wants to run. He's already on the Ohio Supreme Court. He wants to run against Bruner. And if he would have beat Bruner, then he gets 6 more years, and that would extend well beyond the age of 70 for him, but he would be allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's a controversial way of doing it. It's bringing up a lot of raised eyebrows. What do you think?
Well, I spoke with Pat Fisher at the Hamilton County Lincoln dinner last month. He approached me, and I asked him, what do you think about the 4 who are already running? And he said, you mean 5? And I said, well, who's the 5th? And he said himself. And I said, you're age limited. And he said, not if I run for Bruner's seat. He said, I can get 4 more years. And I said, well, why do you want to do that? And he said he talked to Alex Triantafilou, and Alex told him to run. And he said that Alex told him that he didn't think the other 4 could beat Bruner. And I said, Pat, I don't believe that for a minute. I said, Bruner has no power. I said, the Democrats aren't going to spend money to help her win that race. They're going to put their money into races where they can do some damage to Republicans. And it's not that race. I said, anybody can run on the Supreme Court and win this. So
now, that's a good point. Let me just piggyback off of that for a minute, because number one, they've only got 1 Democrat, okay? So I don't know how much money you want to put behind her. Even if you maintain a 1 Democrat seat, you're still not going to be able to do a lot.
No,
the
you're
Ohio
powerless.
Supreme Court. Yeah, regardless. Good point. I hadn't thought of that. So why would you pump $1 million at $2 million? I hear it's going to take about $1.5 million if you want to win this race. So you got to be able to raise that money as a Republican. Pat Fisher probably could raise the money, but I think some of the other guys could raise that money as well, some of the other judges. So is there anything in your mind, is there anything nefarious with this at all or not? Is it all in the up and up or what?
Well, I always think that there are people that want to control who wins races. There's always going to be people wanting to control the primaries and things like that. So I don't have any personal knowledge of DeWine or anything like that, other than I am told that Judge Lewis, who's running, is very close to DeWine. And Cam Sagasser, who was at the ORP, who worked at the ORP, he is the campaign consultant for Lewis. So, I really don't know. The only thing I can tell you for sure is the conversation I had with Pat Fisher regarding that Alex told him to run. So,
Alex told me to do it. Alex. All right. All right, Shelby. Any insider? Have you heard anything about this? Anything you want to say? Now's your chance.
Just that I've been being lobbied by most of the candidates to hear them, and then asking for an endorsement or some kind of a pre-endorsement. I've spoken to all of them at one point or another. There is some local pressure here, or advocacy with several of the county level race, or at the county level for Licking. They're really pushing for Judge King. That's who that they're asking me that I support Judge King. And again, I haven't taken a position, just as you know, just getting back to our last meeting, I was one of the holdouts that did not want to endorse in the primary for Houston or for Vivek. So I'm sticking by that position and not taking a position on the judge race yet.
Right. Now, the only difference with the judge race is that the judges, they don't get as much money, and the candidates, they can't run a primary That's the difference. A lot of people don't understand that. It's like, well, you shouldn't be endorsing anybody. Well, you have to endorse a judge because the judge cannot. They need 1.5 million to win this race, so they can't be spending money to win a primary. The money is hard to come by if you're a judge and stuff like that. So whoever the state central committee ultimately picks, the other judges are just going to throw up the white flag. It's pretty much already been determined that. But the judges that, I've talked to a few of them, and they're like, you guys have to pick someone, all right? It's not an option. If you don't pick me, fine. You got to pick somebody because, and we will pick somebody. But that's the way the judgeship runs. It's a little bit different. You can't be primarying them because they don't have that money. They can't get that kind of cash.
I'm hearing a rumor.
I agree with that, but my instincts tell me that we're missing a key element of this discussion, and that is the worthwhile nature of the judges. So for anybody who's served in a representative position in government, most everybody has scorecards out there. And we've talked before about Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. Stephanie Stock has been on the program. You'll probably remember some of the scorecards that she's released for the voting track record relative to the objective of getting medical freedom in Ohio. Well, there's another type of scorecard that not everybody you may not be familiar with, and that's the constitutionality. They held up and looked at through the lens of our Constitution, what is the voting track record of our representatives? Well, I'd like to know if there's something similar that we can apply to judges, because it's one thing for lots of these people to tell us that they're Republican, that they're conservative, and they'll uphold the values of the United States, whatever. They're probably all going to say that, including if some far left ultra liberal came in, they would probably lie to us and tell us the same thing. What I would like to know is if we have 5 candidates, I think that's terrific. I'd love to have the pick of the litter. But the pick of the litter shouldn't mean somebody's friends with Mike DeWine or somebody knows somebody's political consultant or somebody can raise 1.5 million and somebody can't. I'm with Joe Miller on this. The Ohio Republican Party is going to make an endorsement, probably. Right. It's fair to assume. That endorsement is probably going to get somebody over the goal line. And so where my eyes are, the goal and the prize for me is turning up the heat and apply the pressure on the Ohio Republican Party not to do what it's typically done in the past, which is who can butter somebody's bread and some little back office deal like the Bob Paduchik thing that used to happen infuriatingly over and over and over again, where somebody would work up some sort of deal and they would move chess pieces around and we would get some sort of tepid, lukewarm schmo in office and elected to something or on a bench somewhere because somebody got some favor out of it. We're talking about our state Supreme Court. I want the absolute strongest person possible. And this isn't time to rest on we've got 6 out of 7, so even if they're just sort of a little bit conservative, maybe, no. This is the time for us, MAGA, the America First, solidly conservative right to assert ourselves. Turn up the heat, I say, on the Ohio Republican Party and look for the longest, best conservative track record of any of one of those 5 candidates.
Yeah, right.
Jonathan, I would agree with you on looking at their track records. Yeah. And I have to be honest, I have not done that. But there is a group out on Facebook called the Ohio Conservative PAC. I do not know who runs it. I know them. But they put out a video that deals with Pat Fisher's record. And I'm assuming that they did their legwork on that, and it's very disturbing, to be honest with you. It was a very well put together video that talks about his voting record in the past, and it didn't seem to be conservative on those votes. So
yeah, well, that's something that would definitely be looked into, and the committee we'll definitely be looking at stuff like that. But it's more, there's several factors that go into electing the judge. Okay, number one is can they get the money? They have to be able to raise money. I don't want to hear any of this crap about that shouldn't be a high priority. It is a high priority because at the end of the day you have to win. Okay, there's no second places in political campaigns. No second place. All right, so you got to be able to raise money. In this case, it could be well over $1 million. You have to raise it. Secondly, you better have a strong political director. You have to have some kind of a strong campaign manager, something, because this is a statewide candidate. You're not just going to be going out putting out yard signs. Okay, this is the cover of the state. Third, you got to be outgoing. All right. You can't be a judge who likes to just hide in the corner. You gotta get your face out there. So the thing is, and then you have to be able to win. All right, you have to have that winning record behind you. So all of these things, and then you got to be conservative too. So it's asking a lot. But I'll tell you what, the candidates that we have, of the 5 or 6, most of them fill the bill. Kind of fill the bill on most of those, check most of those boxes off. Brian, I'm
Joe,
give you a chance.
Can I chime in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Every time that I've been to a meeting where a judge is trying to, curry the favor of the voters and get them to vote for them, every time I've asked questions, the judge says, "Well, I really can't give you my opinion on that because, that may come before me as a judge, and I can't really." Give you. Honestly, as an average citizen, I think it's a waste of time for these judges to come out and try to talk to people because they're not forthcoming and honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is saying true. That we got to have Republicans. Well, I'd like to know. I'd ask the judge, what's the role of government? Judge, should the government be involved in public education? Nobody will anster any of those questions.
No, you're right, though.
So it's almost a waste of time.
Irritating aspect when you're trying to work with judges. They don't want to divulge anything. All they do is they say, well, I'm going to interpret the law through the Constitution, and I'm going to do it correctly.
I'll follow the law. That's what they say.
I'm not going to be some judge that's, what are the activists.
So why are we vote? Why do the people vote for judges? And why don't we just let the party, fight it out? Because the people don't know what they're voting for.
There's Democrats as well. I mean, gotta let the people eventually decide, right? But as far as within the party, that's kind of the thing. They really don't want to have a primary. So it's like the party has to pick somebody and then run with it because it's really hard for them to get out and raise this kind of money.
Another rumor that I heard was that Brunner might not even run for Supreme Court. Because she is powerless, that she may run for one of the other seats that she has a better chance to win. And I've not heard what one of those might be. I don't know if it's Attorney General, Treasurer, Auditor, or whatever. I don't know. She's already been Secretary of State, so I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here for a second. Let's talk about some of the other races here. So Casey Weinstein, he's a Hudson Democrat. He's throwing in his name for U.S. Senate. Has anybody heard of him? Casey Weinstein.
He's a radical. I know who he is. He's a very radical guy, yeah.
And what is he like? Okay, he's radical. That's what I've heard too. But I haven't really spent any time looking at him. I just saw this. He is saying that if Sherrod Brown decides not to enter the race, that he is going to for U.S. Senate. Sherrod Brown, right now, though, I think Sherrod Brown, Schumer. I saw a picture where Schumer flew into Columbus and had dinner with Sherrod Brown and Sherrod Brown's wife. And that tells me that they want him running for the Senate, to go up against Husted. I mean, that unless Schumer just likes flying to Columbus to eat, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to
I think Sherrod Brown's going to run for governor. I don't think he's going to do the Senate thing again.
Oh, you think he's going to run for governor? Well, then maybe that Weinstein will run for U.S. Senate if Sherrod's going to run for governor. I think Sherrod is he's washed
Tim
up.
Ryan.
He's washed
Tim Ryan
up.
is talking about running too.
Who?
Tim Ryan.
Tim Ryan.
Oh, Tim Ryan. I hope he does. I don't think he's a strong candidate.
No.
Yeah, and Amy Acton is I'm not even going to mention that. If you can't, come on. You have to be
Russo,
a legit candidate to even be mentioned. And that
Alison Russo's talking about running for something too, and the scuttlebutt is she might run for Senate. So I don't know.
Okay, well, Russo, yeah, I don't think that I'm not worried about Russo. I'm not worried about her. She didn't do anything as she was the minority leader. And what did she do for the Democrats?
Make noise. That's all.
Nothing. She's. I'm not worried about her at all. I hope Tim Ryan. I mean, I'd beg them to get into the race. Neither one of them has a shot. I don't think. Maybe Sherrod Brown, but this is going to be a MAGA year. This is going to be. It's going to be tough to beat the Republican. It's going to be
something else to throw a wrench out there is I think Tressel's going to run.
That could be. Yeah, you're right.
DeWine has a PAC called Ohio Way PAC. You should take some time and go out and look at who the contributors are to that PAC. Planned Parenthood, the Tide Foundation. Take a look at who the contributors are to that. They held a fundraiser. DeWine and Tressel held a fundraiser through the Ohio Way PAC in Cleveland last week and pulled in $500,000. They did another fundraiser in Cincinnati last week, and I heard they pulled $1 million on that. Now, why is DeWine fundraising? He can't run again. I mean, the money has to go to Tressel. I mean, what else would they be doing with it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Where else would that money be going? Yeah, you're right.
And another reason we need to close the primary because Tressel will pull in Democrats.
That's what they're counting on.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys really? Do you really think that Tressel could pull this off?
Hey, I didn't think DeWine could pull it off. I saw the polling. I was pretty sure Renacci was going to win. I did not.
Well, Blystone hadn't jumped in.
Nobody knew DeWine was going to pull 250,000 Democrats. Nobody knew that.
Well, Joe, to be fair, a lot of people say that, but Blystone was in before Renacci, so it's not that Blystone. And I don't even want to step into that again because, I mean, people are still bitter about that. I mean, that divided our camp. The people were so divided between Blystone and Renacci. There were like households that split, which is crazy. The battles that took place. Right. But the notion that people still say that, like Renacci would have won if Blystone hadn't stepped in. But we got to be fair. Blystone actually came into the race quite a while after Joe Blystone did. So let's be honest about what happened there, but the results.
That's true. That's very true. I don't disagree with you at all. But even I don't like people to say, "Well, if Blystone hadn't have gotten in," the real problem is the Democrats are who costed us that race.
Correct.
It wasn't Jim or Blystone. It was the Democrats.
Correct.
Don't forget that Trump didn't weigh in. If President Trump would have put his endorsement behind one of the candidates, whether it be Stone or Renacci, they would have won.
True, but Paduchek was behind that not happening. So
right, but I'm just saying
right.
there's plenty of blame to go around as to how we ended up with DeWine.
Yeah, so there's a in my book in Ohio politics, there are some no-fly zones, and in my book, knowing what I know, if DeWine is involved, or Kasich, or Paduchek, or there's a long list. As soon as their name enters the conversation, I hear that last night they got together and somebody had a steak dinner with somebody or whatever. It immediately sours anything and everything because it just immediately destroys any hope, any substance behind a we the people grassroots type of movement.
Right.
Because those people have been working schemes and shenanigans and back office deals for decades, destroying America, just leeching money out. It is the Columbus cartel, as Tom Z likes to call it. And they've figured out all these ways of having all their little mechanisms to pull money and shift things around and lie to the public and pull media campaigns in to confuse people. Whatever it takes, they hold on to power. The longer they hold on to power, the more Ohioans end up living in tents under bridges and struggling to survive because they have leached the state dry. It's a beautiful state. We need to work on focusing on how to get back to our true, beautiful, wonderful state of Ohio. And that will never happen with that murky, dark cabal of people hovering around politics. And they do it, let's be fair, going back to the beginning of this conversation and what we started with, they do it by manipulating the Democrat vote. Mm-hmm. They know they can't get their wishy-washy, tepid and Democrat until 5 minutes ago into the state house. What they do is they'll put up somebody who is an actual Republican, and then they will throw mud all over them and terrify the Democrats, get the Democrats to cross over in the hundreds of thousands to vote for the Democrat with the R next to their name, the Rhino. And then on we go. It's a treadmill of disaster and doom for Ohio. We need to break it, which actually is a little side note. It's completely unrelated, but I actually am hanging some significant hope on Marcel Sturbich for Secretary of State, because I think there's a school of thought that says we learned our lesson in 2022. We had a whole slate of grassroots. The cabal, the Columbus cartel, through everything they could, disrupted all kinds of stuff. They threw around all kinds of accusations. But I think what's coming to a head here in Columbus and this race is putting all of our emphasis and weight behind one person to get them in. And I guess an analogy might be getting that one good person on school board, because they can get in, they can start to be the eyes for we the people and report on it and start talking about the things that are broken. Because if they have a complete cabal, we can't even see. So my hope is that we can get Marcel Sturbich in as Secretary of State and at least start getting one good person, and we build on that.
Yeah, and then stop that musical chairs stuff from happening. The commish is with us tonight. How you doing? Now, have you been in the Zoom room for a while, or did you
I
just?
have.
I apologize. I've been looking for you, and I hadn't seen you. And then I there's a lot of little cubes, and then I can't look at them all. And then I was just glancing through it, and I said, "There's John." Oh my gosh, yeah, it's good to see you, man. Sorry about that. So go ahead. I know
Jonathan called for one good person, so here I am.
Yeah, the commish. Let me ask you a question, commish. If Tressel or Vivek in the primary, who would you put your money on?
Not even close. Vivek is going to win this primary. It's a foregone conclusion. President Trump has a 100% win record in his primary choices in Ohio. And I truly do not believe that Jim Tressel is going to run. I think it's very clear that Governor DeWine wants Jim Tressel to run. But Jim is a smart guy. He didn't become president of Youngstown State for nothing. He didn't win all those championships for Ohio State for nothing. He knows what he's doing. And I think he understands he has two choices. He could essentially be mayor of Ohio for 2 years and go out on a high note, or he can enter a bloodbath of a primary and get his butt kicked. And I don't see Jim Tressel taking that on. So I think you're going to see a lot of speculation. You're going to see Governor DeWine nudge him. But I don't think you're going to see him pull the trigger. I think that barring Vivek getting hit by a bus, Tressel is not running for governor.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way too. But like Linda was just saying, they've been doing a lot of fundraising and stuff. So
that's what I'd like to know. What are they doing with those two fundraisers that they had? What are they going to do with the money? I mean, DeWine's not running again. The only person that can use that money would be Tressel.
DeWine's got a lot of kids, and there are plenty of other politicians that may want to run with DeWine's blessing. So I'm sure that part of it is a backup in case Tressel runs, but I think that's increasingly unlikely. And at the end of the day, dark money PACs can spend money 7 ways to Sunday, and it's not as though there aren't a lot of other campaigns and a lot of other races. We may not even be thinking as far ahead as Governor DeWine and what race he may be worried about next. But there's never any there's never any politician who isn't happy to have millions in the bank to spend.
No, that is a good point. That he's got that money, then he can. So I don't know what the campaign rules are on it, but he could probably dish that off to any candidate that he wants to, right? If he wants. So
well, in PAC form, he can just spend it on the candidate's behalf without any real limits. If he's making contributions, and of course there are limits in some races, there aren't in others. Local races, he can put an unlimited amount of money in. State races, there are contribution limits. But if he's just doing the spending directly from the PAC, I mean, he can spend millions of dollars in one race or the other. So who knows? I'm sure that part of it is the hope that Tressel runs, and Governor DeWine has openly talked about that. But in the same breath, Tressel also says, I'm just thinking about it. And I think reading between the tea leaves, you'd have to be obtuse to not recognize that the endorsement of President Trump plus the Ohio Republican Party, you're not going to beat that.
You ain't going anywhere. You're absolutely correct on that. You ain't going anywhere. The Republican Party has already put the stamp of approval on Vivek. Alex Trantafilo, the chairman, has said we are going to devote all resources, all time, effort, everything to get him across the finish line. That Tressel stepping in would cause ripple effect. People would get pretty angry, pretty ticked off if he decided to throw his hat in. And I kind of agree with you. I just don't see it happening. If we hadn't endorsed, if Vivek had not been endorsed, I think Tressel, that opened the door wide for Tressel. But it's closed now, in my opinion. Let me ask, move over to something else here. Brian, I got a question for you. You're a big fan of Jerry Serino, or are you not a big fan of Jerry Serino? They're talking about him being the state Senate chairman coming up here pretty soon. Is that right? Serino.
Yeah, I think I did hear that. Commissioner Plechek may know more about it than I, but no, I would not be supporting Senator Serino. Not that he's looking for my endorsement at all, but not a fan. Not a fan at all.
Okay, that's not a fan of him. I wanted to pull something up.
Yeah, here. Because he's not for a variety of reasons, and it goes back several years. For him kicking me out of a what I thought was a public meeting, so he just wanted to show his power, and then we gave him some alternatives to the property taxes, and he just basically said no, he's not interested. So
really, so he just said he's not interested.
He's one
Amazing.
of these guys that and when he says that if seniors can't afford the property taxes, they should sell their house and move into an apartment, and that will also help the housing shortage that we have in Ohio. So, a man with that attitude or thought process, it sort of scares me if he's going to be in charge of the whole Senate. I mean.
The reason I bring him up is Senate Bill 1 is going to be set to become law here in about a week. Senate Bill 1, this was that diversity, equity, inclusion, or anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here's a picture of DeWine signing it. You got Tressel, of course, and then you got Serino, who is next to Josh Williams. Josh Williams is all the way on the left. And then Jerry Serino there. And it is funny.
I think Commissioner Plechnik would have something to say. I think he did testify down at the State House. Isn't that correct, Commissioner Plechnik?
That's right, Mayor Massey. That's right. And I will say it is not a conservative bill. I'm very disturbed with the passage of Senate Bill 1. Ultimately, it puts restrictions on free speech, no less than FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, the most prominent free speech conservative advocacy group on campus for the last 20-some years, has said it's unconstitutional as a restriction on free speech. There's so many problems with the bill that I could give a lecture on it for the next 3 days and we wouldn't be done. It's an omnibus bill, and it's loaded with nonsense, up to and including requiring professors to post syllabi with their phone numbers on it, as though we want to have random people calling professors at public universities complaining about syllabi. It just, a lot of things that sound good but ultimately make no sense. And I know why we're having this conversation. It's because the plain dealer has given both Senate Bill 1 and Jerry Serino some very positive coverage. And as a conservative, when the plain dealer likes something, I think you can pretty safely say it's not good. Or to quote our Senator Bernie Moreno, if the plain dealer says something, you know it's a lie.
Yeah, I agree with you. The absolute worst newspaper there is the Plain Dealer. Maybe the Columbus Dispatch and the Plain Dealer, it'd be neck and neck, but both of those are garbage. They're just absolute garbage newspapers. But yeah, you're right. That's where I was reading it. But SB 1 does become law here very soon, and we should point out that Commissioner Pleshnik is not only a commissioner, but you are also a professor at Cleveland State University. So this hits you directly. So that definitely hits you directly on there. All right, a couple other things here. I'm just gonna scuttlebutt around here a little bit. And do you guys know who this is? You know who this is? Yeah.
That's Michael.
Who is that?
Who? Linda, I was going to say that.
Wait a minute. What'd you say, Linda?
I said that's Michael.
Yeah. Now I was gonna bring that up too. Now, first of all, this is Michelle Obama, and she had come out and said, there has a rift in the marriage between Michelle and Barack. They're not getting along very well. So she was on a podcast and she said, "I'm glad I didn't have any boys, because they would have turned out like Barack." That ain't a good thing to say. I mean, to your spouse. That's just not the best thing to say to your spouse. But then we've always heard that maybe this ain't a she after all. That could be a he. And it looks sometimes, she looks like he. Or he looks like she. Or whatever. But, he's just, I guess we'll never know. It's just one of those mysteries.
Joe, you have to be able to define what a woman is, Joe. You know that.
Oh, right? That's right. I have no idea what a woman is anymore. Except supposedly, here we got one here. How would you define a woman? How would you define a woman? Supreme Court. Some of the Supreme Court justices cannot do it. Any idea, Linda? Any idea?
Well, I mean, science says it's the chromosomes.
Okay, it's the chromosomes. You're right. I want to show this to the commish, because I want to get your opinion on this. You're obviously aware of the big bomb that took place in Iran. This is that bunker bomb that goes 300 feet down and just explodes. It's like 10 times more explosive than any other weapon we have. And look at how it just goes right to where that cone is. They have that kind of accuracy. All right. But the point also is that Trump's been taking a lot of beef from the Democrats over this. How dare you start a war? And Bernie Sanders was out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, talking to college kids at a rally, and then he got word that this happened. He was like, how dare Trump do this without first calling Congress and declaring war? That whole thing would take months. They're all on vacation anyhow, it seems like. But what is your take on that? Let me get John. You got to have an opinion on that.
Number one, President Trump has been right on the money since the day he took office. Whether we're talking about his first term or his second term, he's been right on the money. And he's reinforced our position in foreign relations in a way we haven't seen in a generation. He says you have 60 days to make peace or else. Now we know what or else means. And by we, I mean the international community that's used to pushing over Joe Biden or Barack Obama, or maybe Michelle was really in charge and Jill, who knows. But they knew that they could push around those presidencies. They understand that the United States not only has the strongest military in the world, it has the will to use it. And when President Trump gives you a 60-day deadline, well, you just might find yourself on the wrong end of a bunker buster if you don't comply. So I think he's fundamentally shifted foreign policy in a very powerful and positive way by reinforcing ultimately the exceptional power that America has in the world. There was this thought that we were so divided that we couldn't act. Now we have a commander-in-chief who has not only the power but the will to act. So I think it's fundamentally positive along those lines. Looking to the particular foreign policy of the Middle East, this doesn't take a rocket scientist to know who the good guys and who the villains are. On the one hand, we have Iran, death to America, and we've got our strongest ally, arguably in the world, Israel, that's been terrorized by Iran and its many different organizations operating through Syria, operating through many different countries. And so President Trump has not only reinforced that the United States is not to be messed with, he's also reinforced our number one ally at the expense of what is essentially just a countrywide terrorist organization. I think that Iran would be very wise to wave the white flag right now. Whatever Donald Trump says, whatever the U.S. says goes, and be prepared to propose a new government, frankly, and new bilateral treaties with Israel and all Middle East partners. Game over. You've been able to launch terrorist attacks from your country, pretending it wasn't you for all these decades, even though we've reliably traced the intelligence back to Iran. It's no state secret that Iran is behind most of the terrorist groups that we've been dealing with for the last 20 years. It's about time that something was done about it, and God bless Donald Trump for being the one president with the strength and the leadership to get the job done.
Where we wanted them to strike and had the desired effect, wherever it may be. Whether it's in Iraq or Syria or bases in the Gulf, as the president said, it would be, as the chairman said, it would be a very bad idea for Iran or its proxies to attempt to attack American forces.
Yeah, I like that. It would be a very bad idea. It would be a very stupid idea for Iran to attack the U.S. or any of its embassies or anything.
I just disagree, though. I disagree because now we're getting into this doctrine of preemptive war. And that's not what I signed up for when I supported Trump.
Well, okay, but they had nuclear weapons. They were ready to develop it, like in a month or so. Don't you think we should have intervened?
Well, that's where if you know that if there is this threat, then go through the proper channels and get a declaration of war, or get an authorization for military use through the Congress.
That's what the Democrats are saying, and that's what Bernie Sanders was saying too. But I don't see.
Well, it's also what Thomas Massey was saying.
That's what Massey was saying as well. But you don't have time for Congress. They're half the time they're on vacation.
Joe,
well, shockingly, my congressman is a Democrat. It's Greg Landsman, and he supports Trump. I was shocked when I saw that this morning, but he's all on board. He thinks we did the right thing.
Yeah, but they're going to have a nuclear bomb in like a month. What?
Joe, they've been saying that for my entire adult life.
Well, yeah, I know it took them a long time to develop it, but it looks like
Shelby. On that last part, you and I agree. The timing is dubious because you're right. We've been hearing it for a long time. They're right on the verge of developing this nuclear weapon. That part is dubious. However, I disagree with you fundamentally that the whole notion, I do not buy into this concept of going through Congress for the simple reason that it's codified and it is specifically enumerated and spelled out that Trump, as commander-in-chief of our military, is authorized for strike force. He's authorized, and that's his job. The job of Congress is misunderstood. The job of Congress is not to say yes or no to war. the job of Congress holds the purse strings. They must authorize the expense of an ongoing war. But from a military standpoint, there's a simple expression that, for me, just clearly articulates this or any other military action, setting aside just for a brief moment whether or not we agree with the action that was taken. And that comment is very specifically, Democrats were not briefed, neither were establishment rhinos. There were no leaks. Now you know. That came from Cat Turd, who's really funny, but smart. Smart. Cat Turd is smart. If Trump had gone and made this, even if he tried to get a room full of 6 people, the chances are roughly 100% that nothing would work. And when we need to strike, when there is a need, and again, for just a brief moment, I'm setting aside the differences in opinion of whether or not we actually had to, for this instance, at a fundamental level as a precursor to any military strike. And I said earlier, in the year leading up to Obama leaving office, he had over 26,000 missile strikes in 7 different countries, none of which were approved by Congress. So there is clearly a precedent. And getting back to the whole Thomas Massey jumping in with all the Democrats.
This is my point, though, is that it's not that I think that Obama was right or that it was wrong. I don't want President Trump acting like Obama. So that's
I'm not bringing it up to say he's acting like Obama. I'm bringing it up to say, if you have a job, if you go and work for a company, you have a job description. Your job is X. You're the CFO or the controller or the accountant or whatever. You have a job, and in your job description, number 1 on the list is your most important. Number 1 most important thing for our president is commander-in-chief. He is the commander of the military. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to go into into another office for somebody else who is supposed to work in parallel with me and ask permission to do my job. That is fundamentally, I believe, wrong. There are some people
I would say read Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution.
Article 1, Section of the that has Article 1, Section 8 to the declaration of war, which isn't what happened.
We haven't. Yeah, we have not.
We attacked another sovereign country.
But there isn't a war here. Trump says that there's peace now. There's peace. We just had to blow up their facilities. No war. We're not doing anything else. That was
right, which is Orwellian doublespeak. So we're going to cause war to prevent war.
You have to show some military might. You have to show
it's real easy to call for peace after you've just bombed somebody. But we disagree on this fundamentally. I just think that I'm 57 years old, and I've lived through one conflict after another, and we really need to start focusing on the problems that we have at home. I'm not saying that we should not defend ourselves, but with the largest military budget in the world, I'm sure that we have some kind of defensive capabilities from whatever Iran would throw at us.
Oh, yeah,
I'm tired of endless war.
But Shelby, Iran can drop a nuke on Israel pretty easily. They're right so close.
But now we're changing the story that it's protecting Israel. It's not protecting the United States.
I think it's both because as Plechnik pointed out, as Commissioner Plechnik pointed out, if we can continue to track back, let's say, for instance, we're in Ohio. And I think there's a great example in the Italian mob that flourished in Chicago. I'm just going to use an analogy. Hopefully this resonates. But we knew for a long time that the Elliot Ness and people were going in and trying to break up the mob. That mob was spreading and sprawling, and the violence was coming out of Chicago. We eventually were pushed to the point where we had to send in federal efforts to try to curb the mob's growth and expansion. It was a bloodbath in Chicago. I think in similar fashion, we have an environment where we had a militarized rogue agent in the Middle East who was threatening Western interests. It was threatening U.S. interest all over the world. It was promoting and funding terrorism over and over and over again, and we kept not responding. We kept plus, Yes. All right. So there's another element here that I think resonates with some people. I have a feeling that there's going to be a dividing fracture right here. But there's great evidence that there's mass subjugation of the Iranian people that's taken place for 39 years. There are people who have humanitarian interests as well. I know those are two different points, but it just occurred to me to bring that up. I mentioned it earlier. There are some videos that have been released from people who have escaped Iran and said it is worse than you can imagine. It's an oppressive regime. Our country has been taken over. But getting back to my primary point, at what point do we have to acknowledge that a lot of our constant pain and suffering and the attacks against our military and our interests is emanating out of Iran?
Yeah, I mean, Iran, they're crazy, okay? They are a crazy country. That supreme leader, he wants that nuke so he can start nuking people. You drop a nuke somewhere, you could wipe out 1 million people, okay? So I'm 100% behind what Trump did. But anyhow, that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, we'll just see where this mission creep leads, because, I mean, again, we're falling for the similar playbook as what got us into Iraq, and we had to go back there twice, and we're in Afghanistan for 20 years. I mean, the first this was that we were just going to take out their nuclear processing capabilities, and now even while we've been on this call, President Trump's put out a tweet indicating now regime change. So now right? Here we're going to have this. Well, we're going to have this mission creep, and we're going to see what happens.
If he does a regime change,
I'm wrong.
He does a regime change. That's a whole different ballgame at all. Just blowing up a few of these nuke sites where they're making the nuke bombs, I don't have a problem with. But a regime change, I think he's probably going to have to go through. Congress on that. Go ahead,
Joe. I think we have to be very clear here. You either fight a war on your own turf, on your own shores, or you fight it on someone else's. And the reality is the United States has not been at peace since World War II. We've not been perfectly safe since World War II. There have been international threats that have wanted to destroy this country from the Cold War on. And the way we've responded, and I think positively, for the American people's safety and sake, is to make sure that the fighting and the war is not from sea to shining sea in the 50 states. We've made sure that the war is elsewhere by keeping the front in other countries. So we're taking the fight to them rather than let them get to us. Now, there have been incidents like September 11th.
Speaking just like George Bush.
It's not just like George Bush, not at all. At the end of the day, though, would you rather have a ground war in the United States, or would you rather blow up someone's nuclear bomb offshore? I mean, that's fundamentally the choice that we have. And we have a military for a reason. There's no point in spending hundreds of billions of dollars on a military if we have no need to fight a war. The reality is, from time to time, other countries will try to destroy the United States because we are a threat to everything they stand for. Ronald Reagan was not wrong when he said that just the principle of America is dangerous to communists and dictators and ayatollahs, because ultimately their people are going to want the deal that we have. Their people are going to say, I want to be free too. I don't want to be under the thumb of some crazy dictator. And so, frankly, every crackpot in the world, every king, every tyrant has an incentive to destroy this country. And it's much more efficient to drop a bunker buster on their nuclear program than to wait until they blow up a major city. And the fact that we haven't had a major nuclear event in the United States, the fact that we haven't had a city destroyed from World War II to today, I mean, it's a small miracle, and it speaks to the incredible sacrifices and hard work behind the scenes of our military. And Donald Trump, I think, wisely understands that precedent. It's very easy to say, I don't want to have mission creep. I think the mission of the military is to keep Americans safe. And the fact that we have not had, frankly, a nuclear explosion in the United States is proof our military are doing their job. And I salute them and thank them.
It is pretty amazing that we have not had a nuclear bomb dropped. Somebody mentioned Cat Turd. This is Cat Turd right here. He just posted something on X. It's kind of funny. It's Thomas. He goes, Congressman Thomas Massey of Kentucky. Oh, this is Trump saying it, I mean. Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say that he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him. He doesn't know him and doesn't respect him. So basically, what Cat Turd is saying is that he's dropping a nuclear bomb, one of those bunker buster bombs, right on Thomas Massie. And that is going to be the end of Massie's career, politically speaking. Without a doubt.
So Brian, I think you need to comment on this. Are you in any way related to Thomas Massie?
Yeah, we were wondering about that.
I covered that, Commissioner, early on in the program, and so I told everyone I am not related in any, not that I'm aware of anyway. I'm not related to Thomas Massie.
Well, we don't believe you.
I don't know if I share his views or not. I don't know all of his views, but
I don't really know who he
some
is.
people say I am. You know, when they know me, they said, "Well, that must be your uncle or cousin or something over there." Maybe he is. I don't know.
Right, but well, we do have one person here. I'll bring you on real quick. Linda, is Thomas Massie and Brian Massie? Are they very similar in their thoughts? I mean, they could be related. Even though what Brian is saying, they could be related. I don't trust them. No?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Well,
and Thomas Massie has never claimed to be MAGA at all. If you ask him, he has never been a Trump supporter.
I got you.
Well, just ask Jerry Serino about Brian Massie, Linda, next time you're talking.
You can ask a lot of people about Brian Massie and find out what's going on there. All right, last thing I want to do tonight, and we couldn't do a show without talking a little bit about property taxes. Let's just knock this out.
Our concern, however, is that on the property owner side, they are purely tapped out. And if they have the ability, which I think they would, to fund your essential service through income tax or through sales tax, why shouldn't they have the right and the ability to fund you in a different way besides putting it all in the backs of the property owners?
While local control is important, relying on frequent levies creates unpredictability and instability for essential services like policing. Police departments require stable, predictable funding to maintain 24/7 readiness, pay salaries, meet pensions and obligations. I mean, again, we work on 3-year contracts, things like that. Things are decided upon pretty early on and over time. So going every year to get levies passed can create major uncertainty. Communities that experience failed levies face immediate cuts to staffing and longer response times, directly impacting public safety. Stable inside millage ensures that police can provide consistent protection regardless of the outcome of an individual levy.
Yeah, the thing I don't like about all that is where they're talking about that inside millage. They seem to be big proponents of that unvoted millage, correct? Some of what he says I kind of agree with. Let's get rid of the levies, but they still want that inside millage.
So, Joe, I want to jump in here. We're talking about House Bill 335, sponsored by Dave Thomas, and I think he's a good kid. I really do. But it's a terrible idea, and I'll tell you why. The attempt here is for the state to essentially pull a John Kasich and say, once again, instead of the state's budget, which has ballooned out of control over the last 5 years, it's just gone to extreme levels where you'd swear Washington, D.C. has infected Columbus. They say, we will not cut taxes or our budget one iota. We instead want to take it directly out of the local governments. And in many cases, there's not much to take, because state law says, thou shalt provide police services, thou shalt provide fire services, thou shalt provide a jail, for example. And so when you tally all that up according to the rules that the state has set, and I want to tell you, the Ohio Revised Code spells out virtually everything a police department has to do, up to and including how dispatch works. It's not as though a mayor and his council can get together and say, let's cut spending on police. They are required by state law to provide the service, and they're really micromanaged in how they do it. So they're put between a rock and a hard place with John Kasich-like legislation where the state balances the budget on the backs of municipalities. The right way to do this is absolutely what David said. We need to use income tax and sales tax to make up the difference, but it shouldn't be new income or sales taxes. It should be the state income and the state sales tax that we are already collecting. And I want to make the point here that with respect to most property taxes, we have been double paying since the beginning, because the state constitution plainly says, not the city, not the township, not the county. It is the state government that is constitutionally required to pay for public schools, which is 60 to 70% of the property tax wherever you live. And the state has not only been taking in all that state sales and income tax that's supposed to fund public schools and spending on other things, they've also then been allowing public schools to pull in property tax. So it's been a double tax. You all have been paying for schools twice. And what the state legislature needs to do is take responsibility, admit that they have a bloated, out of control budget, admit that they're the ones who need to take the cut, and pass comprehensive property tax reform right now. Not by saying fire half your police department, because they know that won't happen. It's facetious because they know that ultimately it will force cities and villages to raise other taxes off your back. And what good does it do to you if they cut your taxes, but with the other hand, they're reaching in your pocket and taking more of your money? It doesn't do you much good at all. They need to use the revenue that's currently coming in to cut property taxes, not say raise more taxes on the other end. That is not a boon to the taxpayer. And frankly, it's an attempt to pass the buck. And it's a failed attempt, by the way. The president of the Senate, Rob McCauley, said he did not believe the Senate caucus would support it. Speaker Huffman said he did not think it would pass. Even the bill's sponsor conceded he did not think that House Bill 335 would pass. I agree with the principle that it is wrong that we've been forcing people to pay these unvoted tax increases, but I disagree with the state saying, why don't you cut all your police and firefighters to pay for the difference? No. How about we cut Columbus? And by the way, fun fact, Columbus's proposed budget, all funds, is over $100 billion. That's the budget they're talking about in Columbus right now. Cutting that by less than 20% would cover abolishing property taxes altogether. Cutting it less than 3% would be enough to fund 100% property tax exemption for every senior in the state with no income or wealth limitations whatsoever. The state has plenty of money to get reforms done. They are just unwilling to give up the cash.
Yeah, Brian.
I would like to nominate Commissioner John Plechnik for governor of the state of Ohio. Do I get a second on that?
Yeah.
Commissioner Plechnik, I appreciate that.
I know, it's good advice. But what's your thoughts, though?
What we've heard is Governor DeWine say that public schools are funded by income taxes and property taxes. And all I've heard from the elected officials is that eventually they want to eliminate the income tax. So if they eliminate the income tax, ergo, that means there's going to be even greater dependence on the property taxes to fund the public schools. And that's a problem. So what we are going to do, our committee, we're going to make this, the property tax versus income tax, we're going to make that an issue for 2026. And when we get the needed signatures and we get the ballot, the amendment on the ballot, we're going to find out who is really supporting the average citizen. Will Vivek Ramaswamy, will he commit to eliminating property tax, or will he commit to eliminating the income tax? Because, we've been told that none of the average citizens have been clamoring for the reduction of or elimination of the income tax, but they sure want to see the property taxes reduced. And I think what is happening is that the legislators are really once again eliminating the income tax because that's going to help their donor class, and especially next year when they're up for re-election and they're going to need money from their donors, and the only way they get money is if they're promising some tax reductions. So 2026 is going to be a very, very interesting year, and our committee and the average citizens throughout the state of Ohio are going to keep pushing to eliminate the property taxes. Yeah. And as far as paying for police and fire, I said, send us a bill. Just don't tie it to our house. Mm-hmm. No taxes should be tied to our house. Any tax causing a citizen to become homeless is immoral.
I really don't think that the folks in Columbus, Joe, I really don't think the folks in Columbus realize what a powerful grassroots effort this is. I was at a picnic earlier today, proud to be a Slovenian Day in Ashtabula, and not one, but two people came up to my group of friends as we were eating some Slovenian sausage and celebrating our heritage. Not one, but two different people came up with a petition to circulate to abolish property taxes.
Amen.
And that wasn't, I wasn't the one handing out the petitions. That was folks, in Ashtabula, handed out these petitions at a Slovenian cultural picnic. It really says something that not one, but two people were circulating petitions at the same event. That was completely non-political. I just do not think that Columbus understands that the people are awake, they are angry, and that they expect real reform. And when they propose, half measures and little pieces of nonsense about, we're not going to do replacement levies anymore, only renewal levies, look what I did for you, I think it infuriates people. I really do. And I'm not suggesting that we don't need to reform the finer points of the property tax law and all of our tax laws in Ohio, but finer points will not solve the problem here. Finer points are things you have the luxury of working on after you fix the big problems, and they've let these problems fester now for years. It is far too late for them to say, we need more time, we need to be thoughtful. They've literally had years to debate these issues. They've created a committee, and after 2 years, what do we have? We have a report gathering dust with none of the proposals implemented into law. And the things that they're proposing now weren't even in the report. So there's been no consistency. There's been no drive out of Columbus. And a reasonable person looking at what they're doing would conclude that they really don't want to do anything, but they view the amendment to the Constitution to abolish property taxes, and I've heard them say this, as the sword of Damocles. And they're afraid what will happen if the state suddenly is on the hook to pay for 100% of public schools, which is what they were supposed to be doing all along. Suddenly, all that extra money that our state reps and senators have to do ribbon cuttings and hand out earmarks to people so that, surprise, surprise, you give $600 million to a football team and then completely unrelated, you get a max out contribution to your campaign. Who could have seen that coming? They won't have that money anymore. The state budget will still balance. The law requires it to. But they won't have the earmarks to buy votes, to buy donations, and that's what they're really afraid of. Yeah, they're not afraid of losing police and fire. They're afraid of losing their donors.
I like what you said.
Yeah, Commissioner Plechnik and Joe, I can tell you, Joe, that those two circulators that approached Commissioner Plechnik at the picnic, those are just two of over 1,000 circulators that we have throughout the state, and we're adding more circulators every day.
Wow.
We're getting calls, from people throughout the state. It's not just, in Lake County.
That is amazing.
It goes all the way down to Hamilton, out to,
fantastic.
The western part of the state. It's huge, and it's going to continue to grow, and we're not going to give up. No, just like if anybody's Senator Serino is listening to this, Jerry, we're not going to give up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, do you want to maybe plug that website? What is it? Axe the Tax, where you can go and look.
We've got a couple websites going. Thank you, Jonathan. It's axohiotax.com. It's AXOH tax.com, and then the other one is with the great group in. Keith Davies and Beth Blackmar's group in Cuyahoga County, they're doing a great job. They're Citizens for Property Tax Reform.com. You could find any information. You can also volunteer if you want to be a circulator, or if you need to. We would like to sign a petition. We're adding new events every week, and coming in the summer months, we're going to go to the fairs where we can. Get a lot of people in one venue. In fact, even in Lake County, if somebody calls and wants to sign a petition, I'm going out to their house to get them to sign. So we're serious about this.
At least one of those sites, there's a list of locations. So you can look up and see when and where somebody is going to be available for signing. And I know a few times recently in Lake County in particular, Lake and one I know of in Geauga, somebody just went for a span of hours and just sort of parked themselves in a high traffic area, like next to a grocery store or a high traffic shopping mall or something. And they've just told people on social media, and it's posted on the website. So you can literally just drive up to some convenient spot in a big parking lot, add your signature, and keep driving. And that's consolidated and published on those websites. So let's get out there, people. Let's get after it and add your signature to that thing. When you find it, when you find somebody with one of those clipboards, these are the good clipboards, not the leftist lying.
And the only requirement is a registered voter. That's the only requirement, just a registered voter.
Any registered voter.
Republican, the other Democrat, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is a nonpartisan issue. We're fighting for everyone. Yeah, because it really is immoral to tell somebody that in a house you've lived all your life, you paid off the mortgage, it's yours, and then the government in 3 years can foreclose on you if you don't pay those property taxes. 3 years you could lose your house.
Yeah, and then they just keep accumulating. Those tax bills just keep accumulating too over those 3 years. If you don't have the money to pay it the first year, how are you going to pay it the third year, right? And people, Social Security, senior citizens and that losing their homes over this, it's got to stop. And
also the younger generations.
Let me tell you something. This is our golden opportunity to make it happen. We're never going to have this opportunity again. People are so ticked off that they will sign that petition and they will vote to get rid of a property tax. This is the one chance we got. We can't blow it.
Yeah, I know and we're not eliminating fire departments or police departments. Do not let them make you afraid that you're not going to have the fire or police or roads and bridges or sanitations. That's just fear mongering on their part.
And Brian, to follow up on that point, when I interviewed with Newsweek, I laid out in detail how we could just take the state budget back to 2023 levels, and that would pay by itself. That would pay for the property tax cut. I don't know about you, but 2023 was fine for me. We didn't live in a post-apocalyptic hellscape. The truth is we could cut all of the government in Columbus to zero, and no one would even notice for a couple of years. Maybe true. You'd be like, well, maybe my appeal didn't go through the Ohio Supreme Court. Other than that, we wouldn't even notice. So the reality is it would not be an earth-shaking change, and it's not even a massive change to the budget, a less than 20% cut. I mean, that's not bankruptcy. That's not substantial restructuring. That's basically just forcing these bigwigs in Columbus to ratchet things back a little bit. It's not a huge deal, and they try to make it into it and act as though we won't have police, fire, or roads. We all know that if they tried to actually cut police, fire, and roads down to nothing, every last politician in Columbus would have their butts kicked and unelected. It is not on the table. It will never happen. But it's what they want to throw at you so that you won't force them to make the difficult choices. They are very concerned that all that extra money sloshing around their budget that they use to buy votes and endorsements and support and donations, they're worried that that money is about to be gone. That's what we're really talking about. We're talking about whether or not politicians will have extra money in their budget to buy support. We're really asking, do you want the state Senate to have so much money that they can give the Browns $1 billion? If the answer is yes, you really shouldn't sign this petition. But if you're not worried about giving billions to power plants and football teams, every couple of years someone's running for Speaker or Senate President, if you don't want to fund corruption, sign the petition.
You got it. Very good. All right. I think we're going to call it a night tonight. I want to thank everybody. Linda, Caudill, thank you very much for joining us. Shelby, thanks for hopping in. John Poleshnik, thank you again. And, of course, Brian, Jonathan, thank everybody. we're going to hit the get out of here. It's just so freaking hot. I got to get out of here. But you guys have a good night, okay? Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Shelby.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.